Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to welcome Arjun Pillai, co-founder and CEO at Docket. Arjun, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me here. Excited.
Yeah, great to have you here. Let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I have been an entrepreneur for a little bit of time. It has been 13 years since I started my first company. I started my first company when I was 23. I'm an engineer by education prior to that. My first company did it for 4.5 years, grew to 72 people, exited successfully, thankfully. Then moved to US because they wanted me to do the integration of the companies. And was with that company for a little bit, then consulted for a bunch of companies, started my second company 2018 end. Ran that for a little over about 2.5 years, raised about 2.7 million. First company was about 380,000 in total, mostly bootstrapped. Second one, 2.7 in total in 3 rounds. We went through accelerators as well. Then that company grew to 35 people between India and US. And I sold that to a company called ZoomInfo, which is a publicly listed NASDAQ listed company. I then was the SVP of ZoomInfo for a little bit, then eventually became the chief data officer of ZoomInfo. And 2023 July, I left ZoomInfo and started Docket. So currently I'm the co-founder and CEO of Docket, where we are building an AI sales engineer for B2B sales.
I love that background. And so engineer by trade. And so did you, after say getting your engineering degree, did you jump right into entrepreneurship or did you work the corporate life and then start your company?
Yeah, there is a running joke in India where I grew up. First of all, you become an engineer, then you figure out what you do with your life. Then once you become your engineer, you go and do your IT dues. I was also part of the IT due section, which is Infosys. It is a IT services company that you might know of. I was there for about 1.5 years, kind of, trying to think what to do and things like that. So after that 1.5 years, I started the company.
Okay, perfect. So engineering, then do the corporate life and then start your own company at an early age. So yeah, quite the experience you've had so far. So let's talk about your current endeavor Docket. So tell us about the products and their services that Docket offers.
Yeah. As I mentioned, Docket is an AI sales engineer. Fundamentally, I've been in sales tech, Martech, and data tech for pretty much the whole 30 years. One thing that I have noticed, and most of the people listening can also relate to, whenever a salesperson is selling like a complex product, they need a ton of help that they need because the buyers are asking a lot of product questions, competitive questions, objections. And account executives, in many cases, they are not able to keep up with all the changes that are happening. So without account executives being enabled in the right way, obviously the companies won't have deals happening. And companies hire a lot of sales engineers to help account executives kind of get the deal done. Sales engineers are amazing resources, but I have never seen a company having enough of them. They are always receiving 3 times the request, 4 times the request that they can service. They're difficult to find, difficult to train, difficult to retain, and expensive. So that's where AI was happening. And I saw an opportunity for the first time to build an AI sales engineer that learns from the existing go-to-market knowledge sources, structured and unstructured, and learns from the best sellers in the company and best product specialists in the company and becomes a clone of the best performers in the company. And by tapping into the knowledge of our agent, a salesperson will be able to answer any kinds of question that the buyer is asking.
So really interesting. So we see all the AI SDRs right out there. So now we're talking
Yeah.
sales engineers. Haven't seen that yet, but I worked in a GovTech company where we had sales engineers, complex product, needed them on the demos, helping the sales rep. And it's hard to find good sales engineers. And then I saw then maybe you had your favorite sales engineer who you thought was great on demos and answering certain
Yeah.
questions. So interesting. So tell me where in that sales process do you insert the sales engineer? And I'm really curious here. Is it like when we're on a call with a demo, is it after the fact, offline, asynchronous? So tell me how that fits into the sales pipeline.
We typically come into the sales process at the first call. In the sense, we have a real-time aspect to the product where we can enable the account executives in real time, but it's all internal at this point in time. We are not interfacing with the customer directly, which would change. We have some things in work. By the time you probably will put it out there, we would be testing this with or doing alpha with a bunch of customers with our latest iteration of the product. But typically we come pre-call, during the call a little bit, a lot on the post call. The things that we help salespeople, first of all, answer questions, competitive intel, objection handling, case studies, references, all of that. Then we help to fill out RFP, RFI, security questionnaires, which I'm sure in GovTech you have seen. Then in many cases, people want to create, custom documents after the call, and salespeople have to put that request to somebody else. That takes 3 weeks, 4 weeks. We kind of do that in about 20 seconds. So all of these are the things that salespeople kind of tap into Docket to do.
So interesting. So right now, so internal facing, maybe coming soon external. So really, it's helping the sales rep prep for these calls, post call prep for that next call, and then I assume also if you get into, like you said, security questionnaires, RFPs, that then you can feed those technical questions into your AI engine to get that answer much faster than previously.
Absolutely. We answered 100, 150 questions in about 30 to 50 seconds. It can be like as complicated, multiple sheets. Yeah, all of that is taken care of.
Okay. And I assume you're going into the CRO VP of sales, but if I was a CFO sitting in that demo meeting or on a Zoom call, the data sources, so how are we training up this AI sales engineer?
Typically, what we have seen is about 7% of the go-to-market knowledge in companies, they are documented, and about 93% is locked in somebody's head or in unstructured data. So for us to get a good coverage across, we need to tap into both. So that would typically mean existing documentations, whether it is in Google Drive, Jira, Confluence, Zendesk, Intercom, help centers. We can tap into all of that right out of the gate. Unstructured data will be in Slack or Microsoft Teams. Companies might be doing call recording on Zoom, Gong, Chorus, one of them, or Clary. We integrate with all of them. Then the existing RFP, security questionnaires, etc., that companies have filled. Then website. So I kind of probably mentioned about 5 sources right now. You can go live in about an hour with our system because you're basically integrating the system, throwing this data into the system. System takes care of the recency of the data, frequency of the facts, authority of the data sources, all of that. And the system will take about 2-3 hours for the indexing and searching part. And then in about 5 hours, you can start using the product.
I love that. So it sounds like, if you've got those data sources, documentation plus live recordings, sales calls, Slack, Teams, whatever, just feed it and up and running. And tell us a little bit about your IC. I assume B2B businesses, any verticals. So tell us a little bit about the sweet spot for your customer.
Yeah, we are pretty industry agnostic in the sense that the technology is very much a industry agnostic technology, but we typically perform better when there is some level of a complexity with our customer's product. If they are selling like $1,000 ACV product, then they probably don't need us, right? But if they are selling slightly complex product, they have account executive asking questions, they have multiple products and they want to improve their upsell, cross-sell, things like that. Or if they are GovTech, then RFP, RFI, security questionnaire heavy companies, then they come to us. Typically, when we go out and prospect, we do like anywhere between like 500 to 10,000 employee companies when we go out. But to be fair, our smaller customer has about 15 seats and our biggest customer has about 1,500 seats of Docket. So we go like pretty end to end depending on the complexity of the product that they have.
Yeah, and it seems to me like once they've hired some sales engineers and scaling from there, potentially a good time to get in there. So interesting. So industry agnostic, but yeah, that makes sense. Complexity where you need that sales and engineer role to help in that sales process. And so I assume you're trying to reach out to the sales leader, marketing leader.
Yes, but in current market landscape, honestly, we also talk sometimes to the CFOs. The interesting thing is CFOs have more firepower than ever before and for the right reasons. And CFOs, in my opinion, especially the more operational CFOs, they're also curious about AI because they also see AI as an opportunity to kind of, reset some of the inefficiencies that they see in the go-to-market funnel. So a lot of the conversations that I have with, let's say the C-level could be CFO, CIO, CRO, even like sometimes there is a board for AI evangelist, all these titles. It is around this terminology that is evolving called GTM AI strategy. So companies are like somebody, either the board or the CEO, somebody is like, hey, go figure out our GTM AI strategy. And then people are like scrambling to figure out what exactly is that. So a lot of my conversations with, let's say, CFOs, are about how should a company think about GTM AI strategy? Where to start? What are the ways to start? Who should be the person? What are the steps? What are the metrics? What is the timeline? How much money? So we kind of guide them through in a step-by-step process. Hopefully their problems will align to Docket so that Docket can become a piece of the puzzle. But in most cases, it is way beyond just Docket.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And yeah, definitely CFOs, more of a seat at the table software buys. And tell us a little bit about pricing. I'm really curious how your pricing model works.
Yeah, our pricing is a platform pricing plus a seat model right now. Yes, AI will make the more consumption-based pricing, things like that possible in the future. But today we are going with a very familiar pricing. You can imagine, at scale, like if it cost about $1 a day for account executive. That's how much it'll come down to.
Okay, makes sense. So yeah, going with that platform plus seat, really interesting. And so do you feel good, like, and this is I don't know, discussion debate among CFO circles, to say AI first companies and just understanding that cost structure and the tokens and the credits being used. So you feel, I guess, pretty comfortable with where you are now, that based on that model, that's going to cover any COGS or cost of goods sold in DevOps and just the AI usage on your side in ingesting into your model.
Absolutely. I have heard from multiple startups that they have problems with margins because they are very AI, the way in which they have built the system. The thing about AI is there are pieces of AI that are very expensive, and then there are some pieces of AI that is not too expensive. A simple example for people is if you are doing everything in real-time processing, that is expensive. If you are doing batch processing, it is actually way less expensive. So we do a lot of batch processing on our data. So our costs are not that high, and we are able to pass on some of those cost advantages back to our customers. We also believe that this is the time where AI vendors should be aggressively priced because people are trying to tiptoe in, right? You shouldn't be putting like a cost in front of them that will cost them their jobs, right? They are trying out multiple things. Obviously, some will succeed, some will fail, especially in the whole AI realm. So we want to make sure that they get an easy entry. We also do pilots for our customers for the same reason. Because, again, trust my swanky demo is like a very big problem in AI space because demos are very easy to build, but to get to enterprise ready production is tough. We have like thousands of users on our platform right now. But until we got to thousands of users, even we were not confident this was like an enterprise ready, production ready, high accuracy, low hallucination, all of that. So yeah, that's all of the thoughts that I had about what you asked.
Yeah, no, definitely. I appreciate that insight, especially real time versus batch processing. So we're learning along the way here. So let's talk some stats and figures here. So you mentioned, so you founded the company July 2023, correct?
August of
Oh,
2023.
okay.
July, I was at Zoom Info. Yeah.
Okay, so just left. And then do you have a headquarters location for Docket?
Yeah. Palo Alto.
Palo Alto. Okay, perfect. And then what's the current team size?
So we have an office in Palo Alto, which is where I'm right now. And we also have an office in Bangalore. Between our Bangalore and US office, we have 45 people. 35 of them are in India, about 10 or 11 in US right now.
Okay. So about 45 total staff. And then I know there's some things you can't disclose, but can you disclose any ARR ranges, revenue ranges, or sense of scale for Docket right now?
Yeah, we are early stage in the sense that we are not double digit millions. You can say we are in the 0 to 1, something that is, around that, let's say, crossed it, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, so early stages, founded in the early innings here. So tell us, I'm curious, sorry, so you're helping companies with their go-to-market motion. Tell us a little bit about your go-to-market motion. How are you finding your prospects right now?
Much like most of the companies, it's a mixed bag. We have a marketing team that's doing really well. So if you look at our funnel, at the top of the funnel in terms of how many leads that we are generating, where they are coming from, paid social is working for us, like LinkedIn. Inbound is working for us really well. And that's a combination of many things that we do, including PR, including the social posting that we do, things like that. Then we do very small dinner events for CROs and revenue leaders. We call it Rethink Revenue. It's a brand that we are starting to build out. So we invite like 10 people for the closed dinners and kind of, it's not a very salesy event. It's more like they interact with each other and we are there to facilitate. Sometimes we get 2 or 3 people interested in Docket because it's a pervasive problem we are solving. That's the third bucket. Then there is, a bunch of others. Right? We do a lot of content out there, things like that. So things kind of start from there. We have a sales team that takes the top of the funnel and kind of convert it down.
Okay, appreciate the insight on those distribution channels, and dinner events. I co-host some of those myself, so very popular right now. And then just making that connection with the community. So let's switch over to the fundraising side. How much capital have you raised to date?
So we have raised till date $20.3 million, 5.3 in seed, and 15 million in Series A.
Okay. Yep, I saw that. So they had the seed and Series A, so it's about 20 million in total. And tell us a little bit about that the chronology of that and just the timeline. So you with the seed, really interesting, and then Series A. So tell us what led to that seed round. Were there any triggers or milestones, in the startup process that led you to the seed?
The seed stage happened pretty much at the idea stage or like the design partnership stage, let's say. That majorly happened because, my background, I've done 2 startups, C-level title at a 1.2 billion revenue public company, the right founder, right market, right traction, AI story, all of that kind of came together. And that's how the seed happened. Series A was also early for our traction level. And that is primarily because, again, the thesis was very strong and our traction was very strong. So we had line of sight to the things that we were hitting and the conversations were positive. And when the investor went and talked to the prospects and existing customers, it kind of, in fact, one of our customer went to an investor and said, to their partner investor and said, you should absolutely invest in this company. So, there were a lot of things that happened that way. So we announced it, I think, July of last year that we went Series A.
Okay. So seed was really at that like you said, that
September of 2023, pretty much right after the inception.
And I'm sure like your background, your experience brought a lot of credibility to the table to say enhance or maybe speed up that seed round. And what about any advice for founders who maybe say don't have your background and they've worked engineering and now they want to start their own company and raise a seeds? Any lessons that maybe you found in the process?
Of course. This time it came a little easier for me, but again, I have gone through the grunt work the last 2 times. In fact, first time when I fundraised, I got 65 no before I got the first yes. So been there, done that, and I can totally relate to the founders. Today, honestly speaking, it is a little bit easier if you have a good AI story and engineers, if you have a good pedigree from like a Google, Meta, or like a Stanford, some form of a pedigree, it becomes easier for you. If you have a really strong pedigree, you can probably raise $3, $4, $5 million. If you don't have a super strong pedigree, don't try to reach for $4 or $5 million. Try to raise about $2 million. So make sure that you are asking for something that investors can feel comfortable about, right? And there are people raising 15 million seed, 85, like I think DevRev, Dheeraj's company, raised 85 million seed. That's fine because it is Dheeraj. He did Nutanix, right? So depending on people, obviously it changes. So if you're a first-time founder, you have something interesting, don't try to raise 5 million, raise $2 million. And when you raise $2 million, try to go after funds that are not that big, somewhere like, let's say, $60 million or even $40 million to $120 million funds, right? That's kind of the sweet spot for you to hit. Go speak to everybody. The best way to go reach out to them is, hey, I am building X, give that tagline. I see that you have invested in these kind of AI companies before. Can we meet for 30 minutes to take feedback? So there's a saying, I'm sure you may have also heard it. Ask for money, you get advice. Ask for advice, you get money. So, follow that and I'm sure you will be able to land.
Yeah, I appreciate that insight. And it may, that just proves like no overnight, success stories. You got, like you said, 65 no's back in the day, but now all that experience has helped you raise capital a little bit faster now. So we appreciate you sharing that background. And Arjun, at this stage of your company, you founded a couple years ago, do you have a favorite number or metric that you're focused on to guide the business?
Today, we are in the growth mode, the scaling GTM mode. So certainly closed one is the number one metric that we have to go for, ARR. But ARR is still a lagging indicator. So we have to go look at the other metrics. So the metrics include like, SAL to pilots that we kind of look for, right? How many are coming as the SQL, like the sales qualified lead? How many are converting into SALs, sales accepted leads? Sales accepted leads to the pilot is the first KPI, meaning are we doing the sales execution well? And from pilot to closed one, that is the second metric that I look for, which means the product is doing what we promised it to do. So if we optimize for both of these things, the ARR will automatically happen. So that's ARR is the North Star, but these are the metrics that I keep track of.
Okay, so ARR, very popular response, but also appreciate the SQL to SAL to pilot conversion ratios and then pilot to close one and keeping track of those funnel metrics, which is awesome. So,
Yeah.
and so tell us a little bit about your sales, but going back to a little to GTM, talking about that, is it founder-led sales still, or do you have a sales team now?
We have a small sales team now. It's very much founder involved sales. I'm part of pretty much all the calls. In most cases, right from the first call, especially if the company is slightly bigger, then I'm part of every single call. I lead many of those calls. I do the demos myself, but I do have 3 people on the team doing the sales too.
Okay. Okay. So I love that because usually founder-led sales, now founder-involved sales to then maybe eventually just, SLG. So Arjun, really appreciate your time sharing your experience. As we wrap up, what's coming up next for Docket?
There are 2 focuses, right? One is the product that I kind of divulged a little bit. It's almost like you heard it here first, where Docket will go external and will start doing external things, being a true sales engineer in some way. So I'm very excited about that world because what we are going to put out there is probably the first time in the world, there's a product like that that's going to interact the way it is going to interact. So super excited about it. That's the product side. And we have a pretty sharp roadmap for the next couple of years, and almost a big chunk of whatever we are going to put out there will be net new things in the world. So super excited about that. And the other side is the go-to-market scale up, continuously figuring out. You ask for one metric, that's the ARR, but there are many. We are very tight on metrics. I know the ACVs, the sales cycles. Almost any number you ask, we have a HubSpot dashboard that indicates that. So just doubling down on go-to-market and fixing it one by one because it is never perfect. There are pieces of inefficiencies and pieces where it's broken. Fixing it one by one, basically going, to use a hype word, to go founder mode and try to fix it. That's the second thing. So those are the 2 things that I'm focused.
And before we wrap here, you mentioned a really, the sharp roadmap, and you have a lot of experience now starting companies, scaling companies, and exiting. How do you stay early stages? How do you stay focused with that roadmap? Right, it's so easy to have shiny object syndrome, but any technique, process where you can just execute a roadmap and not get too off track?
Focusing on the customer feedback is probably the single biggest thing that everybody would tell you, and I would echo it in the sense that if you are getting into a room and coming up with your own ideas versus you are hearing it one by one from the customer, that's better. The second thing that I would focus is, especially in the AI world, if you're putting a net new feature out there, try to always find at least a couple of design partners for that feature. I mean, I'm not saying feature like adding a button that you should go and add. Don't wait for a design partner. But if you're putting like a net new thing, a net new interaction, a net new app, a net new capability, go find a couple of design partners, do it as an alpha for them, roll it out to them and let them say it is bad. And then you perfect it, go back to them and this is pretty good. And then roll it out to everybody.
Okay, so some last minute insight there. So I really appreciate that because the roadmap is so hard, like what to monetize, what to improve, tech debt, all that great stuff. So Arjun, really appreciate your time, sharing your experience and journey today. If listeners would like to learn more about Docket, where should we send them online?
To find more about Docket, go to DocketAI.com. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. We share all the updates. I share publicly all the demos of the product, upcoming things, the mistakes, everything that we are doing along the way on LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out to me, that's fine. Please do LinkedIn. Yeah. So DocketAI.com and my LinkedIn would be the 2 best places.
That's great. So if you'd like to learn more, check out DocketAI.com or follow Arjun on LinkedIn. He's got a ton of followers on LinkedIn. So obviously posting some great content there. So Arjun, really appreciate your time today and sharing your journey.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Thanks for having me. And I really enjoyed the chat.